Briarwood was a quaint little town, known for its picturesque autumns and the thrill of Halloween. Every year as October rolled in, the streets came alive with children in various costumes, laughing and collecting candy. But beneath the festive atmosphere lay an unsettling history that only a few knew about. This year, 22-year-old Sarah was determined to make Halloween special. After losing her father, who had been her inspiration and mentor in all things creative, she felt a deep void in her life. Every Halloween they would carve pumpkins together, creating faces that lit up their home with warmth and laughter. But now, it was just her, a bittersweet reminder of what she had lost. Sarah decided she would carve a pumpkin that would honor her father's memory. She selected a large, bright orange pumpkin, reminiscent of the ones they used to carve. She envisioned a design that would bring smiles to her neighbors, a wide, cheerful grin with sharp, gleaming eyes. As the evening approached, Sarah set up her tools and got to work. Hours passed as she meticulously carved the pumpkin, her hands moving with an almost instinctual familiarity. With each cut, she felt a connection to her father, memories flooding back of his laughter and guidance. But as she lit the candle inside and placed it within the hollowed-out pumpkin, something shifted in the air. The flickering flame cast shadows that danced around the room, but there was something unsettling about those shadows. They seemed to writhe and twist, as if alive. The pumpkin's carved face appeared to grin wider with each passing moment, and a chill ran down her spine. Just my imagination, she thought, forcing a laugh as she took a step back to admire her handiwork. But deep down, she felt an inexplicable sense of unease. As the night wore on, the cozy atmosphere of her home began to feel oppressive. Later, a soft knock echoed through her house, a gentle, almost innocent sound that made her heart race. It was too late for trick-or-treaters. Cautiously, she opened the door, expecting to find nothing. To her surprise, the porch was empty. Confused, Sarah stepped outside, peering into the darkness that enveloped her home. The cool night air sent shivers down her spine. Suddenly, she heard a whisper, a soft, childlike voice that drifted on the wind. "Let me out." Panic surged through her as she spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but there was no one in sight. Heart racing, she felt an overwhelming urge to return to her pumpkin. Inside the house, the flickering candlelight revealed an ominous sight. The pumpkin had toppled over, exposing a hidden compartment beneath. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the compartment to find a crumpled note. It read, "You shouldn't have carved my face." Fear gripped her as she realized she was not alone. The whisper grew louder, echoing around her. "You will pay for your mistake." Dread enveloped her as the air grew colder. Shadows deepened, and she sensed something lurking just beyond the reach of her porch light. Panic gripped her heart as she rushed back inside, locking the door behind her. But as she glanced at the pumpkin again, it lit up even brighter, casting a grotesque glow throughout the room. It wasn't just a pumpkin anymore. It was a portal to something dark and sinister. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging her into darkness. She fumbled for her phone, but it slipped from her grasp and shattered on the floor, leaving her blind in her own home. The darkness pressed against her, and when the lights finally returned, the pumpkin grinned wider than ever, its shadows stretching across the walls like tendrils. Terrified, she turned to look out the window. There it stood, a figure in the yard, shrouded in darkness, staring right at her. Her heart raced as she felt icy fingers grip her shoulder. She spun around, only to find herself face to face with her own reflection. But it wasn't her anymore. The figure outside now wore a twisted, malevolent grin. From that night on, Sarah vanished without a trace. The townsfolk still speak of her pumpkin that sits on the porch, eternally watching, waiting for the next curious soul to carve its face. And every Halloween, as the wind rustles the leaves and the shadows grow long, some say you can still hear a faint whisper pleading, "Let me out." In the quaint town of Eldridge, Halloween wasn't just another holiday. It was a tradition that everyone looked forward to, a night where laughter and screams of excitement filled the air. Children, decked out in colorful costumes, roamed the streets. bags in hand, ready to collect as much candy as they could. But among the joy, a darker shadow loomed, the legend of the Hawthorne House. This old, decaying mansion stood at the edge of town, shrouded in mystery and tales of the supernatural. It was said to be haunted by the spirit of a little girl named Clara, who had vanished on Halloween night decades ago. Clara was adored by all for her sweet nature and infectious laughter. Every Halloween she would set out to gather candy, but one year she strayed too far into the dark woods bordering Eldridge, and she was never seen again. As the years passed, rumors spread like wildfire. Locals whispered that Clara's ghost still lingered in the Hawthorne house, beckoning children with the promise of candy, only to trap them forever in her eerie world. Most parents warned their kids to stay away, but a few adventurous souls were drawn to the mansion, eager to uncover the truth. This Halloween, 3 friends, Jamie, Max, and Ella, decided they would brave the legend. Jamie, a spirited 12-year-old, always had a flair for adventure. Max, her loyal sidekick, was dressed as a pirate, and Ella, her best friend, wore a fairy costume. They had spent the evening trick-or-treating, but as the night grew darker, they felt a pull toward the ominous mansion. "Let's check it out," Jamie urged, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Are you sure about this?" Ella asked nervously, glancing at the towering silhouette of the Hawthorne house. "What if Clara's ghost is really in there?" "Come on, it'll be fun. We'll just take a quick look," Jamie replied, trying to convince her friends. With trepidation and excitement, they made their way to the mansion. As they approached, the air turned frigid, and a chilling wind rustled the leaves, creating an eerie soundtrack to their adventure. The broken windows seemed to glare down at them, casting sinister shadows on the ground. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with dust and decay. Cobwebs clung to every corner as they stepped cautiously into the foyer, the floorboards creaking under their weight. Max held a flashlight that flickered ominously, illuminating the darkened corners of the room. "What's that noise?" Ella susurró. Su corazón latiendo. A soft, childlike giggle floated through the air, chilling them to the bone. "It's probably just the wind," Jamie said, though she felt a knot of fear tightening in her stomach. As they explored, the whispers grew louder, calling out to them, urging them deeper into the mansion. Finally, they found a door at the end of a dimly lit hallway, slightly ajar, with a flickering light spilling out. "Do you think we should go in?" Max asked, his voice trembling. Jamie nodded, her curiosity overpowering her fear. They pushed the door open and stepped inside. What they saw was both enchanting and terrifying. The room was filled with decorations, streamers, candy wrappers, and colorful treats scattered across the floor. In the center sat a glowing jack-o'-lantern, its carved grin illuminated in the darkness. "Clara," Jamie called, her voice echoing against the walls. "Come play with us," a sweet voice replied, laced with an eerie tone. Suddenly, Clara appeared, a small figure dressed in a tattered white dress, her hair wild and her eyes glowing. "I've been waiting for you," she exclaimed, her voice sweet yet haunting. "What do you want?" Ella stammered, clutching her pumpkin bucket tightly. "Candy," Clara giggled, pointing at the glowing pumpkin. "It's all for you." Jamie felt an irresistible urge to step forward, entranced by the promise of sweets. But just as she reached out, a chilling realization washed over her. This was not right. "We can't stay," she said, shaking her head in disbelief. "You want us to be trapped here, don't you?" The smile on Clara's face vanished, replaced by an unsettling expression of desperation. "No one ever wants to play with me," she said softly. "You can stay, forever." Panic surged through Jamie, and she shouted, "Run!" Grabbing Max and Ella, they turned to flee, but the door slammed shut behind them with a loud bang, sealing them inside the room. The once cheerful giggling turned sinister, echoing around them as the shadows began to writhe and stretch toward the trio. Huddled together, their breaths quickened, hearts pounding in their chests. "Let us go," Max shouted, fear distorting his face. "Not until you play," Clara's voice echoed, filled with a haunting glee. "It's Halloween. We can have so much fun together." Desperately, Jamie scanned the room for a way out. In a moment of desperation, she grabbed a handful of candy wrappers from the table and threw them at the door, hoping to create a distraction. "Look!" she cried. "Candy!" Clara's gaze flickered to the wrappers, momentarily distracted. "Candy?" she asked, tilting her head in curiosity. Seizing the opportunity, Jamie slammed her shoulder against the door, and to her surprise, it swung open. The trio burst through, sprinting down the hallway, their hearts racing with fear and adrenaline. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of the streetlight at the edge of the property, gasping for breath, the chilling laughter fading behind them. "What just happened?" Ella asked, her voice shaking. Jamie turned to look back at the mansion, now a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. "We almost became part of the legend," she whispered, a chill creeping down her spine. From that night on, the kids of Eldridge learned to heed the warnings about the Hawthorne house. The mansion still stood, a monument to Clara's loneliness, forever waiting for the next curious souls who dared to test the legends. As Halloween approached each year, whispers of the little girl in the mansion echoed through the town. Parents warned their children to stay away and cherish their candy, because the spirit of Clara lingered, still hungry for company on Halloween night. As Halloween approached, Jake, a vibrant college student known for his love of comedy and performance, was on the hunt for the perfect costume. Every year, he strived to outdo himself, aiming to become the life of the party. But this year, the pressure felt greater. He wanted something extraordinary that would leave a lasting impression. One fateful afternoon, after a grueling class, Jake decided to explore the outskirts of town. He had heard whispers about an old costume shop that had been closed for years. Curiosity piqued. He made his way to the shop, intrigued by the idea of uncovering hidden treasures from the past. Upon arriving, Jake was met with a dilapidated exterior, dusty windows and a door that creaked ominously as he pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of mold and forgotten fabric. It felt as if he had stepped into another time, a place steeped in mystery and nostalgia. Rows of dusty costumes and props lined the walls, each one seemingly holding a story of its own. As he navigated the narrow aisles, something caught his eye, a vibrant clown costume hanging in the corner. Its colors, red, yellow, and blue, stood out starkly against the shop's faded backdrop. There was an undeniable energy emanating from it, as if it were calling out to him. Memories of childhood Halloween parties flooded his mind, where clowns brought both joy and a hint of fear. He hesitated for a moment, but the allure was too strong to resist. This could be the one, he thought, grinning to himself. After a brief moment of indecision, he purchased the costume, feeling a mix of excitement and unease as he left the shop. It was as if he were unaware that he had just bought something far more sinister than he anticipated. On Halloween night, Jake slipped into the clown costume, its fabric hugging him snugly. He marveled at how well it fit, almost as if it were made for him. As he entered the bustling party, a wave of confidence washed over him. Cheers and laughter filled the room, and Jake felt invincible. But as the night wore on, something began to shift. The more he embraced the clown persona, the more he felt an unsettling presence creeping into his mind. Whispers floated around him, faint yet insistent, urging him to entertain. "Make them laugh, Jake. Make them remember." At first, it was harmless fun, pranks and jokes that had everyone roaring with laughter. But as the atmosphere thickened with excitement, so did the darkness surrounding him. His friends began to exchange uneasy glances, sensing the change in him. Jake felt the costume tighten around him, almost suffocating. The whispers grew louder, drowning out his thoughts. "Go further, Jake. Don't hold back." They echoed in his mind, demanding he take things to a new chaotic level. Just then, the lights flickered ominously. In that brief moment of darkness, Jake caught a glimpse of his reflection in a mirror. What he saw sent chills down his spine. The face staring back at him was not his own. It was twisted and malevolent, with an impossibly wide grin that seemed to stretch beyond reality. Panic gripped him. He tried to tear the costume off, but it clung to him like a parasite, refusing to let go. In a fit of rage, Jake spun around, ready to unleash a prank that would go down in party history. But the lights cut out completely, plunging the room into darkness. Confusion and chaos erupted among the partygoers as they searched for him, but he was nowhere to be found. When the lights flickered back on, Jake had vanished. The laughter continued, now an echo of pure madness reverberating through the halls. Guests called out for him, but their voices were swallowed by the overwhelming sense of dread that filled the air. Uneasy whispers spread among the remaining partygoers about the haunted clown costume that lay abandoned in the shop, waiting for its next unsuspecting victim. Each Halloween since, those brave enough to don the clown costume reported feeling the same sinister pull, the same whispers urging them to embrace something darker. The legend of Jake lived on, shrouded in mystery. No one knew what truly happened to him that night. Had he succumbed to the darkness, forever bound to the cursed costume, or had he become something else entirely? What was certain was that every Halloween, the echoes of his laughter resonated through the air, a chilling reminder of the night Jake became lost to the madness.